From the book of Swami Kriyananda, Rays of the One Light. Truth in surrender lies victory. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. A case might be made for surrender as a path to victory in worldly conflicts. The way of passive resistance, for example, in preference to armed resistance. But our point here concerns a higher kind of surrender, the surrender of our deluded egoic will to the wise and almighty will of God. Human will is, as Paramahansa Yogananda used to say, guided by whims and limited understanding. The divine will is in harmony with every level of reality. Though the divine will sometimes appear to us at first to be wrong, it proves always, eventually, to be for our highest good. Human will is inconsistent. It leads us one day to success and another to disaster. The divine will, when we surrender to it completely, though it is not always easy to do so, always brings us deep inner peace and joy in the end. Jesus Christ demonstrated this perfect surrender to God's will in the Garden of Gethsemane. The night before he was captured and imprisoned, preparatory to his crucifixion. He went apart from the others to pray and asked them to pray also. But when he returned to them, he found them asleep. Out of his love for them, he excused them, saying, "The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." He then urged them again, saying, "Watch and pray." Their weakness in those circumstances was particularly sad, and the disciples themselves must have regretted it bitterly later on. We all know the symptoms of human weakness, though we may excuse them in ourselves, saying, "Well, after all, I'm only human." But what are the signs of true strength? We find in all cases that these are the fruits of a life wholly surrendered to God. The Bhagavad Gita lists these signs in the 13th chapter. Humbleness, truthfulness, harmlessness, patience and honor, reverence for the wise, purity, constancy, control of the self, contempt for sense delights, self-sacrifice, perception of the certainty of heal. In birth, old age, and frame mortality, disease, the ego's suffering and sin. Detachment, lightly holding thoughts of home, children and wife, those ties which bind most men. An ever tranquil heart, heedless of God, of good or adverse fortune, with the will upraised to worship me alone unceasingly, loving deep solitude and shunning noise of foolish crowds. Calm focus on the self perceived within and infinity. These qualities reveal true wisdom. Prince, all that is otherwise is ignorance. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Good Sunday, everyone. Also to you who are connected online. This weekend is the weekend of St. Francis, especially for us here in Assisi, St. Francis is celebrated because tomorrow it is the day of his death, I believe. And it makes me think to the ancient times, like when in the past, renunciation, surrendering was lived more exteriorly, more from outside. And I think of Saint Francis when he was preaching. Imagine, let's go back to 900 years ago. He was preaching in these small villages with few hundred people, but he was preaching with such a strong power that the whole village of babies, men, women, everybody was following him in poverty, because he said, let go of everything, let go of all the attachments and trust, surrender completely in God, who will provide everything for you according to the Bible. And very simple people let go of everything and follow with him. Are you ready now if I tell you so? Are you ready to do so? Of course not, because I don't have the power of Saint Francis. And this also means that Saint Francis was not so might. He was a very strong and powerful man, very. Recently, I was in Assisi, close by the house of San Bernardo, one of the first disciples of Saint Francis, where he lives. He lived, Bernardo da Quintavalle. He was a noble man, very rich here in Assisi, and he heard about this guy, Saint Francis. Oh, better, he knew Saint Francis since they were children, and so he asked himself what happened in the middle, what did he became, and so he invited Saint Francis to his house for a dinner, and so Saint Francis went to his house, and Bernardo wanted to see something. So after dinner, he invited Saint Francis to sleep in his bedroom. So both of them slept, each one on his bed. But in truth, Saint Francis was faking to be asleep, and the same Bernardo, because Bernardo wanted to see what Francis was supposed to do. So after a while, Francis, when he thought that Bernardo was asleep, he sat and he went into ecstasy. He fell into ecstasy like he often did in the night. It was not only, he was not a man who was praying, oh, please, Lord, but he was so powerful, because when Bernardo saw what was going on secretly, Bernardo all of a sudden let go of all his richness and followed Francis in total poverty. But it's a poverty, we have to think that it's not the same poverty that you can imagine now. If you go in a monastery, there are comforts, but hundreds of years ago it meant to let go every certainty, because there was nothing outside the cities, outside the villages. And so deciding to follow Francis in such conditions, it really meant that Francis had such strong power, the power to transform consciousness. So today, our times are different, but the principle of surrendering is still remain, because it's an universal principle which is part of life. Somehow we have to always let go of something to allow something new to come. This is the law of the universe. Both things cannot be in the same space. It's not possible your small self to be in the same place of the higher self. One of the two has to go out. the small self and everything it means has to, little by little, has to let go to create the room for something higher, much more brightful, which is called the higher self or God or other names. These principles we can still see in the Indian temples. Still nowadays we can see that the sadhus, they just surrender to God. They let go of everything. They renounce to everything, all the belongings, maybe only a dhoti, a cloth that they were on the body, and then I trust in life and God, and they walk from a place to another every day. And so every day somehow God supports them. And I had an experience when I was a young boy. It was one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. Somehow there is a book written by an Indian Swami, whose name is Swami Ramdas, and he tells about his life with God. He, so for him, every single step in his life was Rama, because he worshipped God in the form of Rama. And once he tell about he was traveling on a train without having paid the ticket, and so he was invited to go off the train. And so he said, oh, God asked me to get off the train. And then he meets someone that feeds him and say, oh, Rama was so generous with me because he feeded me. So his whole life was Rama acting in every single event of his life. Every image which came up to him was coming from Rama, from God. And this attitude, this is the attitude of the devotee. We live like in a movie, but we are at the very center of this movie, and the images, the holograms that changes every single moment. And when you think that these images are against you, you suffer, you suffer. But when you accept any image which comes up as a simple image in time and space, and if you accept that it comes from a source who loves you like God, and then you live happily, and you live every single event as an opportunity to grow. I also want to tell you a story, a book which I read many years ago and from which I received important teachings. It was written by an American author, Michael Singer. The title of the book is The Surrender Experiment. And this man, who is a disciple of Yogananda, at the end of the 60s, beginning of the 70s, he was a student in the college, and he met, so he, for the first time, he started to meditate with Zen techniques, and in one of the first meditation, he entered in a state of in a transcendent state, and he realized that all the thoughts which were in the emotions which were in his being, in truth, were not part of him, but behind there were a kind of field of calmness and silence, where all these thoughts and emotions just come and go into this field of inner peace. So from the very beginning of his meditations, he realized that when something was happening during the day, for example, something not pleasant, he realized that started to have a rejection, and he was rejecting this moment, this event, and so from this rejection, many thoughts uh, started in his mind because he was trying to fight the event. But when something like this happens, and on the contrary, when something nice happens, again, emotionally and mentally, we grab to this, and we want to take with us this moment. And when this moment, this moment goes away, fades away, and we cannot hold it, because the image of the image of the movie is changing, then we suffer again. So he realized this process and told to himself, he also noticed that if I don't get into this process, because the negative things are not so negative, so if he doesn't enter into this process, if things flow more easily. So he makes an inner commitment, which for his entire life he was faithful, and he said, I want to make an experiment. I just surrender. I don't enter into this process. I don't try to influence or manipulate life, because as much as I try and as much as things go worse, so I try to cooperate with things which are happening, keeping my emotions and thoughts out from this. And then in this book, he tell about his life, which is just fantastic. So from that moment on, as Saint Francis says, the author of the book said, okay, I just want to have a little house in Florida, and I retired, I've withdrawn from life, because I just want to stay in this state, a very high stay. I just want to spend my life in meditation with this very, very small house. So he built the house and started meditating. Then one day, all of a sudden, he sees a man on his property building a house. It was the hippie period when people wanted to leave the cities. And he started to feel this reaction, this process of reaction. This is my property. Who are you here on my property? But then he said, okay, I made a commitment, so I let go. And so he went to this man, started talking to him, and this man said, oh, I want to build a house here because I want to meditate like you. And so the first man said, okay, I help you to build the house. And so he learned how to build the house. And so I make it short, from this first event, then little by little a spiritual community appeared, because other people arrived, wanted to share this life with meditation. They built the houses, and from this, from the very so he helped people to build the houses until he became very expert, and other people asked him to help in building houses. So after a certain period, he created a building enterprise, and he was very successful. But then he only wanted to meditate. But then he was just following the events, and the spiritual community was working. He meditated daily, until one day, maybe at the end of the 70s, he goes in a shop and he sees one of the first computers, and he says, oh, interesting, what is this? How does it work? Oh, very interesting. And he felt a feeling, an affinity, so he bought the computers and started to study how to use it. So he started to make programs, and one of the of the person from the shop asked him, please help him, I need a little help. So again a new flow started, because he was very talented, naturally talented with the process of the creating programs. So many other people asked him to create programs and other things, and until, again, to make it short, from this, naturally, he created an insurance company. No, sorry, an insurance company went to him and asked him, can you help us to organize our system, our computer system? And he created a very complicated program for this company. And he created a software which then was spread out in America everywhere. And then also the whole world used the software which he created. And again, his company was really, really successful. So from his small community, a great company of software company was created, and many people of the community worked there. And he was, this happened just following the flow. But the story is not at the end yet, because at a certain point, the computer company, the software company, was built by someone and became very, very big. It grew up to $1 billion. He had a private jet, still meditating, still offering everything, the good and the bad, to God, and still keeping the community prosperous. But then someone, when he was at the peak of success and there was so much money involved, someone tricked it. Someone cheated him, and so he was taken in the court. He was accused of something he didn't do. He went to prison and lost everything he created. But again, he still said, he said that this was not so hard. He said the hardest moment was for him to accept the first man on his land who wanted to build the house. But then all the rest was much more simple for him to accept in the 30 years of this surrender experiment. So in prison he just accepted. So everything was, he lost the cause in the court, he lost his companies, belongings, but he fell into a simple life again. But he went on with this surrender experiment. So he wrote a book, and without any purpose, he just wrote this book about his life, and it is called the surrender experiment, and it became a bestseller. Millions and millions of copies were sold, and now again, without any willing in this way, he's very well known. He's a spiritual teacher, very well known. He says that Yogananda is his guru. He also went to Ananda in the 70s in America, and then he had his own path, but he's part of our lineage. And I have learned a lot from his book, because he describes so well this behavior, this, when if you don't jump into the things with your emotional process, and you activate the attraction and rejection process, because the main principle in every single thing of life is this: attraction and rejection. Because when we want to have something, or we want something to happen, we always think, oh, if this is going to happen tomorrow, if this is going to happen tomorrow, we create a kind of attraction for that situation. But if this situation doesn't happen, we suffer, or on the contrary, we have a rejection, hatred, fear, other negative feelings, because we don't want something to happen in the movie of our life. Because we are afraid, oh, what will it happen? I don't want this. So we try to remove part of the movie of our life. We don't want to accept it, or we hate someone, we want someone to stay far away from us. This is a rejection, hatred. This creates suffering again and again. And on the contrary, when love wants something, we want to, there is this attraction, we want to have something or someone, want to be one with that person or that thing. Again, this creates suffering because it doesn't work like this. Nothing can be ours forever. So in the whole universe, if we observe the universe in the microcosmos, in the atom, there are this process of the attraction and rejection, the polarity, and the same is in the macrocosmos, the galaxies. There is this polarity and this process of attraction and rejection. Everything happens through this process. So, somehow, our life and our purpose is to go beyond this process. Let go of this identification. Let go the identification with this process of attraction and rejection, and to find the very center. This is the core of our spiritual work. Somehow, also in meditation, surrendering, letting go of is everything. This is the point we have to reach, the point where we let go of everything that we think, or what we think that we are, in favor of something higher, wider. This is true love, to let go of ourselves for something higher. And this is what St. Francis, Yogananda, and Swami Kriyananda talked about, this act of love, of letting go. Letting go. Letting go on all the levels. This is a practice that we have to practice every single moment, because any event is trying to catch us in this process of attraction and rejection. But we have to learn how to let go, and then a new image come in the movie of our life, new day, new challenge. Again, let go, don't enter in the process. Let go and offer, let go to something higher and relax into this. Don't get identified with this inner chaos, inner mess. And as much we practice this, much more free we become. And also life flows much more freely. And what at first appeared to be bad, then it will reveals like something good. Like for this man, he lost his companies, his money, he went to prison, and it seems the worst thing that could happen to him. But then it was a step to open up a new stage of his life with success, writing books, and dedicate his whole day to the spiritual teaching. So somehow God, life, removed from him that movie, and he forced him, not in a very gentle way, he forced him to start a new direction. As much as we try to stay stuck to the old, to it is known for us, so what is normal, until we get stuck in the comfort zone. We want to be stuck in the comfort zone. It will not work, because sooner or later we will have to let go it. And as much as we stay attached to that, we will suffer. Do you know the cymatic? It's very interesting, because I like to study geometry and frequencies, and so there are some instruments which project some frequencies on a surface where there is water or sand. Every single frequency creates a geometry, a geometric shape, triangles, stars, very beautiful geometry shapes. When the frequency becomes higher, this geometry just disintegrate, this shape disintegrate and become very chaotic and ugly, until at the next octave, again, when you reach the next step of frequency, again the geometry will shape will become very pure and beautiful. But if again you change the frequency and you reach the next step of the frequency, again a new shape will be created. If in the between one frequency and the other there is chaos and the shape are not nice, but when the next frequency is reached, we become nicer and nicer, and every single step the geometry will become more detailed and beautiful. And this is something that can be an image of what is going on in our lives in this period. If we remain on one frequency, there is a certain order, a certain level of order. Many people lead their whole life on that level, and it works for them. That life is satisfying. Everything works well. From the birth to death, nothing special happens, but for many people this works. But very often, if we try to change our life and to make one step higher, to move to a new frequency, all of a sudden, all the order of our life is somehow disintegrated. Chaos appears. There is a lot of turbulence that we have to go through until we reach the next level, where again there is a new order in our life. Did it ever happen to you? Something like this? Every transformation, when we make our quantum jump, our quantum leap, then we reach a new order. But we have to reach that new level. We have to go through chaos and confusion. This is the surrendering. This can happen only through the surrendering, through letting go the old thing. Think of Saint Clare of Assisi. She lived in a rich, noble family. She had to escape in the night, hiding herself in a secret to reach St. Francis in Santa Maria degli Angeli. And of course, her family was against this choice of her. A lot of chaos. We have to be brave to go through the chaos and the challenges. You know, very often life shows events, natural events, which we have to go through. Also, on the social level, we can see the old systems are collapsing. You know, on the political level, on all the levels. There are so many waves. It's not possible to understand what is good, what is bad. The words are used to say one thing and also the opposite, and this chaos will increase because somehow we are in the process to change the frequency. So until we reach the next level, we will be through this chaos. All the structures are collapsing. Everything is stuck, will collapse. And sooner or later, let's hope sooner than later, we will reach the next frequency, the next level, so that on the individual and on the social level, a new order, a new balance, a new geometry will be created. And it will be a higher level. I hope so. I want to talk about an experience of my life which I lived. I went through this process when at a certain point of my life, my old life dissolved. I had a divorce. I had to divorce, and then I had to let go of my old job, and I had to let go some official roles. So I from a certain day on, I had nothing left. Not a house, not a car. I had to sleep on a couch in a place here in Ananda, and I told myself, hey, you cannot fall lower than this. This is the bottom, the very bottom. And I tried to start a new project, but they were not successful. I had some delusions, also on love relationships. So I really didn't know what to do. I just didn't know what to do. It was a moment of my life. I remember very clearly that moment which I surrendered inwardly. I let go of my will, who wanted to do this or that. With my strength, with my will, I can do this or that. I can create something new. Somehow I relaxed. I relaxed my heart, saying, I talk to God as the Divine Mother, and I said, Divine Mother, I rely on you. I do my best, but everything is up to you. I will do my best every single moment, but everything is up to you. And like a miracle happened, because little by little things started to change. I started thinking differently. I created a small business, which now I live on. I live on it. It's prosperous now. And I'm also so free with that activity because I'm free, I'm independent. Every day I can flow through my life. I met my wife, and now we are building a beautiful house. In few years, everything changed completely, in a completely new direction, which I could never manifest through affirmations or trying to reach a purpose. Maybe someone teaches, oh, fix your purpose and do the affirmation and you will get it. No way, no way. You can reach your goals only through the surrendering, just letting go, just flowing, because life can provide you things which are much more better than what you can imagine. Because when your little self decides, cannot be so creative like God or universe or divine mothers. And Swami Kananda once said something perfect, saying, Swami always told us, try to understand what is trying to happen, not what you want to happen. Understand what is trying to happen, because the two things are different, what we want and what things, what life is trying to manifest. Because sometimes we can also be afraid of what can happen. We have to be completely open to life. Life is fantastic, life is wonderful, and life knows much more better than us, which is our direction. Because somehow, also this challenging moment which we are living will bring us something higher, and it is for the best. Everything is for the best, and I'm very trustful because we know that everything is for the best. Also, everything that appears to be very bad, at the very end it manifests. It will manifest that it is for the best, because God is love, God is intelligence, and He wants us to be free. This is the goal of life. God created the whole universe, the drama around us, only for its own. It's a school, because every single atom, every single soul has, sooner or later, has to reach freedom, to reunite, to be one again with Him, with the infinite field of consciousness. This is the goal, and everything is for this. Planets born or gets disintegrated, galaxies born and will be disintegrated, universes will born and they will be disintegrated, only for this, so that the individual soul can evolve and reach freedom. This is a cosmic game on the screen of the field of infinite consciousness, which is benevolent. I tell you one story, the last one, from India, about Shiva and Parvati. Do you know them? Shiva is the king of the yogis. The image of Shiva is the renunciant who gave up everything to of the world, and he is meditating on the Mount Kailash. He is in samadhi with closed eyes. He is in the state of union with God. Nobody can disturb him from this state of samadhi. His body is covered by ash. But Parvati, who in the previous life was the wife of Shiva, so Parvati, when he reincarnates, she remembers that Shiva is her husband, but he's always meditating. So Parvati says, oh, he doesn't look at me, he doesn't consider me. So she tries to do everything to convince Shiva to stay with her. She was totally in love and dedicated to her husband Shiva. So one day Shiva is there meditating in samadhi, and there were some gods who wanted Shiva to reawaken because they had to fight together against some devils who had to be. All the gods had to fight together against these devils, but Shiva was in samadhi. But these gods needed Shiva. At a certain point, Kamadeva, Cupido. At a certain point, Kamadeva, like Cupido, He's like our Cupido. He told Parvati, I can help you to awaken Shiva from Samadhi. So Parvati served Shiva, so she cleans his cave, and she served Shiva some tea, and keeps everything cleaned. But Shiva was not impressed by this, and he was still in his meditation until one moment, Parvati was serving Shiva the sari moves, and the and so Shiva opens the eyes because he could see a part of the body of Parvati. So he opens the eyes, and Kama, and so Kama uses Zarov and launched it on Shiva. And so Shiva, for a very, very little moment, is awakened through this sexual desire. But Shiva is so upset for this, for being disturbed. So from his spiritual eye, he projects a light and burns Kamadeva. So all this attempt just failed. This is the symbol to mean that Shiva is only here. Parvati is Kundalini, but Parvati didn't give up because Shiva was everything for her. So, in the meanwhile, Shiva moves to Mount Kailash and leaves the place where he lived before. Parvati says, okay, if I did my all attempts and my love, my beauty, everything I did was not sufficient to convince Shiva, okay, I do something different. I give up my wealth, I give up everything, and she wear a cloth, a very poor cloth, and she take place in the same place where Shiva was meditating before, and she meditates and meditates, and for millennia, he meditates for millennia. It was not just few days. And in meditation, she called Shiva, 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 Shiva. And she meditated on him. After a while, Shiva, through his samadhi, felt this call, saying, oh, where does this call come from? Oh, there is this girl who is trying always to disturb me. But he was impressed by this devotion, this strong devotion. Until one day he goes to Parvati, but he didn't manifest himself. He did a shape shifting, and he appeared like a beggar or a hunter. And so he goes to Parvati and says, oh, what are you doing here? Praying Shiva, he's such a bad boy. He does anything every day, just spending days in meditation. There are so many beautiful princes, beautiful men for you, but that God is stinking. He does never clean himself. And she said, oh, you are insulting Shiva. So Parvati goes, don't you dare sing anything against my Shiva. He's everything for me. He's perfect. In that very moment, again, the shape shifting happens, and he manifests himself as the very beautiful Shiva. So from that moment, the great love story between Shiva and Parvati starts, which is a symbol of the work that we have to do inwardly. Parvati is the Kundalini, we have to let go of all the obstacles, abstraction and rejection through the path upward in our spine until Parvati, Shakti, and Shiva are united in the Sahasrara chakra beyond, through the spiritual eyes, and I am beyond it. And from that moment, the dance of the union of love, of samadhi starts. In all these stories, there is always an esoteric meaning which represents our life. But so we cannot escape from this, because the spiritual path can be just can be said in these few words, how much we can let go, how much we can surrender. And also our spiritual practices are not powerful. The only power is that what we offer, our small self, what we think we are, offering to the next level of our being, the next level of our inner reality, until level after level after level, like Parvati did, we reach this point, union. There is nothing else, no geometry anymore, no geometry, only one point, but that point is everything. When there is no separation, there is no a field where the frequencies can create geometries. There is only the infinite, the union between Shiva and Shakti, the point of everything. We have to reach that point, level after level. Let go of our limitations, like Michael Singer did, the author of the book. The Bhagavad Gita affirms this truth, to be proactive when we call our true self with its name, or we give it a name, a shape, an idea. This is the devotional path. For example, we call it Yogananda or Master or Divine Mother, but somehow our strength, the force of attraction, which is our love. Our love is just a force of attraction, because love wants to unite. And when this force of attraction is projected on something which is permanent, become something which can give us freedom. When our force of attraction is projected on something which is impermanent, it will bring us only suffering. So we have to call love. We have to call God. Let's call it God. Or call Yogananda. We have to call it with a name which represents the infinite consciousness. Something which has no shape, has no limits. It's infinite, it's absolute. So somehow we have to stimulate in our own way love for what is permanent. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, remember about me, the infinite consciousness, during your whole life, and fight the battle of the right action. Surrender to me your mind and your comprehension, so that without any doubt you will come to me, to the infinite consciousness.